Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our fender elimination video on the 2022 and up XSR900. In episode 1, we went over the removal of the stock fender and then replacement of that stock fender with our license plate holding hardware, our fender eliminators. In this video, we're going to tackle the installation of the lighting package that typically goes with a fender eliminator. Here in front of me, I have some TST Industries LED aftermarket signals. I also have a license plate light. If you choose to run a license plate light, we can equip you with one of these, also with the connectors, and we'll also show you how to put it on, route it through, connect it, all that good stuff. If the aftermarket signals are not your jam and you want to use your OEM Yamaha signals, that's cool too. We do have a way to remount these signals via a remount bracket that fits perfectly with our fender eliminator kits. All right, let's quickly touch on the little nuances of our equipment here. I'm gonna put this to the side now. We're gonna focus on that a little bit later. That's really simple. Here I have the 3 different signal sets that we produce and sell. Here you have the Echo, this is BL6, this is ARO18. We're just gonna choose one of these to install on the bike because the installation mode is exactly the same for all of these. They just look a little bit different. This one's very, very simple. It's in the shape of an arrow. This one, the BL6, has a very slim look. These are available in a choice of clear or smoke lens. That's up to you. These guys here, the Echoes, I've actually configured the Echo with a blue anodized ring. They come stock from our warehouse with a silver ring. We do offer several different ring choices in case you want to customize your bike. I think even the gold one would look kind of good with this bike. It kind of matches, but I do like the blue on this bike. That really speaks to me and it captivates my eye. So I'm gonna do a blue accent. It'll look really good, and I'm gonna choose to install these guys on the bike. Our signals, as well as most signals on the market, most aftermarket signals on the market, terminate in 3.5 millimeter bullet connectors, and that doesn't just plug into your bike. This is a universal sort of industry standard that companies like mine and others have developed. So what do you do with that? You can grab one of these connector sets. We call them the harness converters. On one side, they are terminated in the female bullet connectors. They are color coded the same as our signals. You just connect it yellow to yellow, black to black, and boom. Plug and play connection to the bike. No big deal, nice and simple. I recommend scooping a set of these harness converters if you're gonna be purchasing signals from us, and also a way to mount these to the bike. We do offer a pod signal mounting kit that comes with 2 L brackets and all the hardware necessary to do that. For our installation on our fender eliminators, the placement of installation happens to be to the license plate bracket. I will show you guys how to perform that. If you are buying these parts for the assembly with a different aftermarket fender eliminator, if you have questions, we do have customer service guys that can take your call or email, and they'll answer your questions. All of this stuff is gonna be minimally invasive, and we will not be making any permanent modifications to the bike. So if you choose to rip this stuff down when you go to sell the bike, that's cool. You just undo all of this, put your stock equipment back on, good to go. Let's get rid of this table, grab some tools, and let's get started. All right, guys, as you can see, I've reverted the bike back to a step that I indicated was a crucial step in part 1 of these videos. This is where I believe is the best spot to start wiring in signals. You have access to all the hardware here without the taillight impeding your maneuverability, and you have access to the passages for all the wires. You can actually just jam the wires in and they will follow the appropriate routing, come out in here, and that'll be easy. If that's not easy for you, if something's going on and you want extra access, you can actually back out partially on the forward holes that hold our closeout in there. And this will permit the closeout to droop down, unlock this, and then we can work with all the wiring and everything separately. I'm going to try to do it in place, whether you're using our adjustable Elite one or this standard Elite one. It's virtually the same job. The only difference here is how the license plate light is going to be wired. On this setup, we flop the wire over the top and get it under and into the bike. On this setup here, we do have a window where the wire will go through, go under here and into all the passages in the closeout. One way or the other, it's very simple. I'm just gonna pick one of these. Let's do it on this one. And put this one back in and try to work with it in place. Let's see how that goes for us. All right. We have our echo signal. This is the signal that I expressed the most interest in on this bike. It does come with a silver ring. I'm gonna change that ring to the blue that I mentioned in my intro. All that we have to do is remove the cap from over the lens. If the cap is being difficult, my trick for getting enough grip on it for taking it off and reinstalling it is a rubber glove with just finger force, and that loosens it up really nicely. When this comes off, it's very likely that your lens is going to come out. So keep track of that. If it does come out, you're going to have to put it back in the same order it came out. So now we just need to get the ring past our rubber O-ring here. If you dislodge that O-ring, make sure you get it back in after you install the ring of your color choice. Mine actually stayed in. If your lens did come out, the smaller diameter end goes into the body, and you just have to make sure that you center it over the LED. I'm going to get the cap back on, and there we go. Use my rubber glove trick to tighten it all the way to bottom, and there we go. That's good to go now. I'm going to give it a quick test and make sure that I can actually pass all the wires through. And in fact, I am able to pass the wires through without any problem. All right, let's grab the pod signal mounting kit, and we'll install the L bracket on here first, then route it through, then do the other side, and then we'll proceed. So in these kits, we have 2 L brackets and a bunch of hardware. You have 3 washers, a screw, and a nut for each side. So that makes a total of 2 screws, 6 washers, 2 nuts. I am going to just make a placeholder setup here for myself. Get a washer over the screw, and then I'm going to use the L bracket in this configuration. Round hole to the side, slotted void towards the back side of the license plate setup. And for now, I'm just going to use 2 washers on here. I'll tell you why we give extra washers in a little bit. All right. Let's get the nut and the washer off of our signal. Signal gets fed from the outside to the inside on this bracket. I'm going to tighten up on the bracket by hand just so it's less cumbersome to deal with. And then we slip the washer that came off the signal stud back over the wires, along with the nut. Get this guy into position. If you've watched enough of my videos, you know that I never tighten anything till the very last step. So again, we are just going to get these fasteners in place and just get them kind of close to where they're going to end up, but leave some adjustability, as you can see. All right, I'm going to run this wire under the entire setup, up through this window in the intermediate bracket. Wants to slip out on me now. Let's put it back in place. All right, now that I have it here, I'm going to go into the bike through the little wiring channel on the closeout. That has routing cut into it on our milling machine that ends up putting your wires right where you need them, and they pop out right next to the seat latch lock. And there we go. I'm actually gonna tighten down on this a little bit more because I'm experiencing the bracket coming out on me. All right, now I'm gonna repeat the steps on this side. So now I'm putting the second L bracket in place, just hand tied again. Didn't want to touch on why we give an extra washer in there. So our thicker aluminum version adjustable license plate bracket is about the thickness of this bracket and one of these washers. So for use on this bracket, you just forgo that one washer, and for use on this bracket, you double washer it, and then it's all good. If for some reason you have interference between the signal stud and the screw, then you move one of the washers from the downside to the outside up above your license plate. This design just makes our kit a little bit more versatile, and that's why we opted for those components to be shipped together. Continue with basically doing what I did on the right side of the bike to the left. Up through the middle of that void first, then through our routing channel in the closeout. So now with both of these on, let's find which one of these corresponds to which signal. I just push and pull. We have the right one here. This is the right one. We'll grab our harness converters, like I mentioned in the intro. Black to black, yellow to yellow. Now we have these insulating caps that need to go over all the exposed metal conductors. I'm going to test it real quick. White is the right signal connector here on Yamahas. Power up the bike, hit the right signal, and in fact we have right signaling. So we are good there. Because of the fact that these can actually slip off during riding, vibration can slip them off, I'm going to use some electrical tape and lock them down in position. I'm going to throw a winding of this tape over the yellow one. That is the positive. That's the most crucial one to lock in place. After that's done, I'm just going to throw a really quick, tight, neat winding around the whole connector package. All right, let's do the other side now. We're good to go and function. We'll lock down the conductors. I'm sorry, we're going to lock down the insulators. All right, now we have some excess wire here that needs to be routed. We're going to finalize that at the very end. I'm just going to get it out of my way here. If you are installing a license plate light, now is a good time to do it. For this particular installation, we're going to go through the window here, and like I mentioned, if you have the other high mount, that basically just gets flopped over the top of the bracket and still goes down the middle. With our signals in place, we still have enough room to route through our license plate light wire because it's pretty tiny. That shouldn't pose too much of a problem here. And again, if you are experiencing issues with fit, you could always lower your closeout off the bike and you'll have enough access in there, no big deal. All right, now that we have the wire in and it's fully through, able to move it back and forth, let's take up some of the slack here. We only need a little bit in this area. All right, now all of our wires here for all this equipment are run properly. We have two little notches here. What we'll do is we'll grab the wire tie that comes with this kit, get it installed in here. And I'm just going to start the ratcheting portion. I'm going to start the lock, but I'm not going to tighten it just yet. I don't tighten this till the very, very end. Once we have all of our equipment on and I like my wire routing and all that stuff is neat, that's when I'm going to cinch it down. All right. We do have the signals already plugged in. Let's do the license plate light. This is our OEM connector here for the license plate light. It does have wires sticking out of the other side. I'm gonna push back on the insulating tape to expose a little bit more of these two wires. We have the blue with a red trace. That is your positive. Our red is gonna connect to that. Then you have a black with a green trace. Our black is gonna connect to that. A license plate light comes with these posi tap connectors. We'll remove the larger diameter cap. It does have a split in it. The split goes around the wire we are trying to plug into, like so. The opposite side has a little piercing element that makes our connection. That threads back on here. And we just get it tight to that wire and we have our connection. I'm going to repeat this on the other wire. So you can see here, I like to stagger them, put them right next to each other, they bunch up. Now, to make the connection between our new wiring and this circuit, let's take the smaller diameter caps off. Be careful how you do that. Maintain contact with them. They do like to get out of your fingers. I have sausage fingers, so it's even more difficult for me. I'm going to grab the wire that we want to connect, put it through the hole on the non-threaded end, and the threaded end, along with a little bit of wire sticking out, will get installed into the other side of that connector. Once that's tight, I give it a little tug test, make sure that it's not going to come out. And then I repeat this procedure on the other wire. Once I make both of these connections, power up the bike, check if I have power to the license plate light. I do, so we're good here. Now the rest of this installation will basically be taking up the slack in my wires and distributing the bulk, making sure that I don't have stuff in the way of my trunk. You could use wire ties, you could use any other method for that. Pretty good here. I got a good amount of bulk here. Let me use my twisty tie. Came with the license plate light to get this bundle, have the bundle all tied together. Shove it under here, under these other wires. There's plenty of routing clips here. It's pretty good. Get my tail light wiring rerun the way it should be. This is what it should look like. All right, all this stuff is nice and neat. I'm gonna go ahead and replace all the hardware that goes on the rear here with the tail light. Instructions for that are provided in our previous video, part 1 of this series. So here we have the bike reconfigured to have the low mount license plate bracket installed. I'm going to show you now how to route and position the license plate light. In the bracket itself, there's a little divot here. That's where the wire from the license plate light is supposed to center. We're going to feed the wire over the top of the bracket, take up the slack, and just leave it here. The actual installation will be same as from the previous segment we just presented, where we had the license plate and license plate light sitting back here. Same mode of installation. You clamp it in place. You can choose to use the adhesive or not. Just make sure that it's hanging center and it's good to go that way. The wire will go to the side behind the license plate bracket and up to the top here. What I like to do is pass it to the top, and behind this position, there's a tab from the sub tray that ends up here with a screw. If you put it in front of that feature, you run the risk of running this seat hook over and over through the wire and possibly breaking that connection. Putting it behind that feature will safeguard it from that possibility. And also, what it does here is the wire will be able to sort of disappear behind the license plate. If you position it just so, you'll just have a very tiny amount of that wire showing. So that's pretty good. The seat latch bracket comes into contact here with the subframe, and your wire ends up being between that bracket and this sub tray feature. So I recommend doing it that way. Once you mount your license plate, this guy stays in place. You distribute your bulk of wire, and then the means of connection will be the same as I already portrayed in the previous segment. Same way to tie into the license plate light circuit with our posi tap connectors. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that for the license plate light. I'm gonna throw the seat on to discuss the different signal options. Now, with this position here, we wanna make sure that our signals are aft as far as possible and possibly protruding as far as possible. You want to be able to show the drivers behind you what you're intending to do. If you mount these guys too deep in there, they may not actually serve their function. So let's talk about that a little bit. We have these two luggage rack mounts on each side. The low mount system really is for the people that are not going to be using luggage racks and things like that. So we are going to consider these to be open positions. We can put a set of echoes here, like you see here on the L bracket system, or we can opt to do the BL6s, and they actually protrude more, and you're going to get more light out of there and showing the drivers behind you what you're intending to do. So I would say use the BL6. It really is up to you. Choice is yours. But I'm gonna use the BL6 here. So our pod signal mounting kit for the undermount position is a specific one. It comes with 2 L brackets, 2 washers of appropriate size for the M8 screws, and then it also comes with 2 M8 screws. So let's grab a hardware set. I'm gonna grab the screw, put the washer over it. For this position, I'm going to take up the round hole with my screw. I'm going to screw right into that luggage rack mount. 5mm Allen will be the tool of choice here. I highly recommend using medium strength thread locking agent on this connection. Tighten this down. Now I'm going to install the other side bracket. At this point, the decision has been made, so let's grab the seat and take it off. Give us a little bit better access here. All right, our BL6 signals mount pretty much the same as the Echoes. I'm gonna keep the flat washer on the rubber boot side. Get my wire through the slotted void here. For this installation, I am ditching the split washer that comes with this hardware set. So when you undo this nut, you are left with a split washer and a flat washer. I've ditched the split washer for now. Don't think it's going to be necessary. Leaving a little bit of adjustability here. All right, for routing, what I like to do is go behind the bracket and then around the boss and then up to the top, right through the split between the front of the taillight and the back of our subframe here. And then this keeps my wiring nice and tight here. I end up with the signal leads on top. Again, like I portrayed in the previous segment, we're gonna go black to black, yellow to yellow. At this point, I would throw tape around these insulators to make sure that we do not have short circuits. Route it. The left side connects to the black side. Give it a test. Nice. I'm quickly going to do the right side. Again, ditching the split washer that we won't be needing for this particular installation. Flat washer goes against the rubber mounting surface. The slot. Again, routing towards the front of the bike around this area, around the boss, up to the top. Actually, I'll take up the slack here so my wires are covered. Make it look a little bit better. There's the right signal, so white plug, test it, that's good to go. Now, the rest of this would be as portrayed before in the previous segment, so I'm not gonna repeat my steps. Just gonna show real quick what this thing in finalized form would look like. If you choose to go with this sort of a kit, this is your end result. License plate here, license plate light here, signals here. You saw how they operate. That's pretty much it for this segment. I'm gonna tear this down one more time and then show you guys how to remount the OEM signals on our remount bracket with the rear mount fender eliminator. All right, in this segment, we're gonna take the OEM signals and remove them off the OEM fender, and then subsequently mount them on our remount bracket. And using the replacement hardware from the remount bracket kit, we'll make the assembly onto our rear mount fender eliminator, and then I'll show you how to get that on the bike and route it properly. Let's begin with the removal of the actual signals. I'm going to use a 5mm Allen to take out these 4 fasteners. They do come out with spacers, so if you want to save this hardware, make sure that you grab the spacers as well. That loosens this connection. Then we still have 4 Phillips head screws in here. Let's take those out now. Now all these pieces come apart. I'll not be reusing any of this hardware. So Yamaha signals have a very cool mounting feature. They do stay in the geometry that they're mounted into via interference. Peel back on the boot, releases this jamming piece, and then you could grasp the signal and pull it away. We're gonna do just that in here. It's very, very simple. All right, on the rear signals for this particular bike, we have extenders. If you want to keep the extenders on your setup, that's perfectly fine. I like to keep mine a little bit farther inboard, so I'm just gonna peel back on the boot, expose this jamming piece. This is a split jamming piece, so it will come off, and then we could get the extender boot upstream to the plug and get rid of it this way. Now this is ready to go back on. Again, grasp, turn, exposes this guy, release it, take it out via split, and milk it up the line. White connector denotes the right signal, so this going to the right of the bike is gonna face this way. I'm gonna pretend you guys are behind the bike, so that will be right. This is left. We need to arrange the larger diameter towards the rear of the bike, and then we'll be able to make the installation like so. Get this jamming piece through. Now we do have a split in this rubber boot, so the split goes last. We'll take the smaller diameter feature of this signal stock, put it into the window that it fits into on the bracket, and then work the split side into it, and it just kind of just fits in there. It's really nice. I'm gonna put the jam piece in place. It does have these windows in the rubber boots, just needs to fit around there, and then boom, it's on there solid. Let's do the other side. And now this one's on there solid. Nice. All right, so in the first video that we released on the actual installation of the fender eliminator components, we showed you how to configure this and how this interacts with the entire assembly of the closeout and license plate mount. We are going to remove this lower portion from the intermediate bracket. This is where we will be replacing these screws with the longer screws that came with this remount bracket. If you are mounting this situation onto our standard and not the adjustable one, it's the same scenario. You just remove the fasteners, replace the shorter fasteners with the longer fasteners, and you still use the same nut and washer. You basically get this guy here and this here, and you're good to go. So your license plate bracket moves under the carrier bracket for the remount kit. Screws go through, fit into the same threaded holes. I'm going to leave this with enough adjustability so that I can make sure everything's symmetric about the center plane of the bike. Once we get it on the bike, I do want to stress that the OEM signals have a much thicker wire bundle. So instead of poking this through after this is all installed, like with our aftermarket signals, we are going to have to arrange these guys in here through the wire passages first, and then make the assembly onto the bike. If you are running a license plate light in conjunction with this setup, make sure you get that situated in here ahead of time. This is a good time to do it. Once we install this on the bike, the wire passages kind of fill up, and it would be very difficult to pass the license plate light wire through. Since I already showed that in a previous segment, I'm gonna forego it this time. I made sure that I have equal wire length here without too much sticking out on one side. I want it to look symmetrical. This looks pretty good. I'm gonna grab this just like that, bring it to the bike, and then we'll start installing it on the bike. All right, bringing this whole setup back to the bike, I'll make sure to have my intermediate bracket pressed in over the wires, holding all that stuff together so that I don't lose the routing. Get my wires through the bottom here, around the left side of the lock, all the way to the top. Just gonna get this in place, get my holes aligned, and start getting my screws into the closeout through the top. I'm working in the same fashion as I did during the installation of the actual just fender eliminator parts. I'm doing the forwardmost screws. I'm going to take up the slack here, and then I'm going to leave the rear ones for later. Just want to make sure all my wires are run through successfully and I'm not pinching them. Everything looks good. I'm going to plug in and test this setup real quick. This is very simple, white to white, black to black. It's just factory colors. All right, we're in business. So now I am going to make sure that this bracket is sitting center. We do have two long slots in there to allow for adjustability. So it's my responsibility to make sure everything is center and symmetrical here. Grab a 10mm open-ended wrench and hold my hinges as I make the final tightening here. This way I prevent any of this hardware from rotating about its axis. All right, and that's looking good now. I'll bring the taillight back into position, making sure taillight damper bracket is in place. And then I'm just gonna finalize this assembly here with the screws that we provided with our closeout. This is all according to the instructions given for the rear mount fender eliminator in part 1 of these videos. I'm going to go full tightness here. Route my wire so everything's out of the way. Everything's neat. All these parts to end up looking like they did from the factory. Obviously, if you are running a license plate light, now would be the time to connect that. And the next step would be put your seat bracket back in place. After that, throw your license plate on, and then you're good to go. I've shown you all the different install modes for the different signals that are available for our fender eliminator systems for this bike. Please check out episode 1 and 2 of this series. In episode 1, we show you the installation of all the hardware. In episode 2, this episode, we show you the signals. Putting that knowledge together will enable you to successfully install all those parts without any problems. If you like what you see here, check out tstindustries.com. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe, hit that bell. I'll see you next one.